knowing that the brain's #1 responsibility and job is to survive, I want you to think of your #1 frustration as a teacher with children, with students, with adolescents. And if your frustration, and raise your hand if it has to do with content. Raise your hand if it's content related. So I've seen a couple, I've seen, one. Raise your hand if it's about behavior and engagement. And that is it. I want to just take, I don't know, this is just what it is constantly, Mark. And so, and there's this big push. And then the NAEP comes out this week with these new, scores that are really telling us a lot about how well standardized testing is working. So, I won't say anything more about that because we have more important things to talk about tonight. But what I want to share tonight is that we have students that want you to ask them, how are you smart? Not how smart are you? And when we ask, how are you smart? And when we ask and we looking at that emotional connection we can make with our students, and knowing that they come into our classrooms, many of them come in from environments where there is a new stress level. We call it allostasis. They bring the toxicity from their environments into the classroom. These students are carrying in their private logic, they're carrying in their personal histories, and this is my #1 concern. Between the ages of 7 and 18 in the United States right now, this age group has a chronic stress level of 22%, and that's conservative. It's higher than any other age group. And when we talk about stress, that sounds trite and it sounds big, but I want to say this to you this evening. This is my passion, is trauma. And when I talk about trauma, I'm not talking about severe neglect or abuse. I'm talking about those students that are walking into your classrooms hungry or tired, or they're caring for other family members. They have responsibilities they should never have at 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, or 14 years old. And we call this ambient developmental trauma. And this is what happens. It affects brain architecture. We know, we see this in functional MRIs, that when a child comes from an environment where there are adverse conditions, where they are dealing with some stress, and there are, on this national study, 11 indicators. We added 2 this past year, 11 indicators showing these adverse conditions. When this happens, we have detached students walking into our classrooms who mistrust you. And what looks oppositional and defiant, and what looks shut off and shut down, and what looks disrespectful are brains that are neurobiologically wired in the stress response. Go ahead and stand up. This is way too much sitting. So what you just did is you raised your oxygenated blood levels by 10 to 12% just now. This is a great way to get your students' attention. It's a very simple way to get their attention. Now, I want you to go ahead and put your hands above your head and just give yourself a nice stretch, just kind of to the side. Keep stretching. Stop. Freeze. Keep it up. Don't just keep. I'm going to tell you something so important right now. I want you to make a brain connection right now. And this is what I'm going to share with you tonight. If you walk out of here and you don't remember anything else, I want you to remember this. Every single experience that we create in the classroom or for ourselves structurally and functionally changes the brain. You can put your hands down. I'm sorry. That was so important. I just don't want you to forget that. Every experience that you create, I'm talking about emotional connection. I'm talking about how you deliver content. Every experience changes the brain of the student. That's incredible to me. This year I've been thinking, what do I do at the entrance of my door? What am I going to say to my students just when they walk in? I'm tired of just shaking their hand and saying good morning and following protocol like that. I want to do something different. You know, and we'll talk. I promise you, you're going to leave with, I have 5 strategies for you tonight that you're going to leave, and I'm going to be back tomorrow for a little bit, and so we're going to talk about more strategies. This is just kind of an overview. Go ahead and have a seat. So I want to tell you, because our brains are wired for survival, we have a negative brain bias. And you know you do, because when you get your teacher evaluations and you've got 25 fabulous comments and marks and you've got 3 shitty ones, where do you go? You know where you go. I know where I go. And I never knew, being a college professor, how hard your students are on you. I mean, I did not get that. So I want to say that this negative brain bias that we have, our students bring that in. We carry that in. And that's part of our survival instinct. That's our neurobiology.